All right, let's jump right in. Have you ever caught yourself feeling like your everyday life is just a random sequence of events? Like stuff is just happening to you out of nowhere? Well, in this explainer, we're totally flipping that script. We're diving into Florence Scovel Shinn's incredible lesson, The House That Faith Built. And the foundational idea here is absolutely crucial. Our lives aren't accidental at all. They're architectural. Every single day, your experiences are being built, brick by brick, right on top of the solid foundation of your own deeply held beliefs.
So, think about this for a second. What if your reality was literally just a mirror reflecting your own internal convictions right back at you? It's a pretty wild thought, right? I really want you to keep that in the back of your mind as we go through this. We're talking about your active, undeniable role in shaping the life you're living. If your reality is a mirror, well, what exactly are you projecting into it?
Which brings us to Section 1, Creators of Our Own Experiences. Let's unpack this metaphysical concept that we're the absolute architects of our reality, not just victims of circumstance. Shinn has this powerful quote, "What you see with your inner eye, you will meet, sooner or later, on the outside." There's just this undeniable link between what we envision internally and what shows up externally. You know, if you're constantly hyperfixated on failure, or fear, or lack, guess what's going to show up at your front door? But the flip side is incredibly empowering. Visualize abundance, visualize health, and that is exactly what you'll inevitably run into.
But how does that actually work? How does an inner vision become something you can touch? Well, Shinn describes it perfectly. She says we literally live in a sea of magnetic force. She calls it mind stuff. So picture this mind stuff as a highly sensitive, invisible ocean all around us. It doesn't have a shape of its own. It's more like clay, and it's constantly molding itself to the exact shape of your desires, your expectations, and yeah, even your fears. Whatever you impress onto this magnetic sea, it eventually crystallizes into your physical everyday experience.
Let's move right along to Section 2, Faith as a Warm Current.
Okay, so if our thoughts are shaping this magnetic sea, we need an engine to drive positive change, right? And Shinn gives us this brilliant analogy. She says faith is like the Gulf Stream. It's not just some passive thought or a vague, fingers-crossed kind of hope. No, the Gulf Stream is an active, incredibly warm river that cuts right through the freezing ocean, completely altering the harsh climate wherever it flows. When you carry active faith, it acts exactly like that river. It brings warmth and fundamentally shifts the cold, rigid situations around you.
Now, look at this stark contrast here between the prison of fear and the warmth of faith. Fear is entirely paralyzing. When you hold on to fear, suspicion, or self-pity, you are literally building a prison of your own making. You're the one locking the door, keeping yourself from your own promised land. But active faith, it's that warm current. It melts right through the cold iron bars of that prison, bringing liberation and actual forward momentum.
All right, Section 3. True prayer means preparation.
This is where we get into the absolute core, actionable takeaway of this explainer. We're shifting our whole understanding of prayer from just asking for things to actively preparing for them. Shinn describes prayer with this amazing, practical phrase, telephoning God. I just love that. It's not about begging or pleading. It's simply placing a direct call to the divine, putting your request in with the universal supplier. It's just straightforward, clear communication.
But hey, communication is always a two-way street, right? So we have prayer on one side and intuition on the other. Prayer is you making the call, sending your request out there. Intuition is the divine telephoning you back. It's that inward response, that sudden hunch, or that light bulb moment that pops into your head, guiding you on exactly how to prepare for the very thing you just asked for.
And that inward guidance leads us straight to the law of preparation. There's this fantastic story in the text about a woman who really wanted a new radio, and she followed 3 simple steps. Step 1, she sent out a request. She made her call. But she didn't just sit around waiting. Step 2, she actively prepared a specific spot in the corner of her living room just for that radio. And step 3, this is the kicker, she physically dusted that empty space every single day, fully expecting the radio to arrive. She was literally showing active faith. So if you aren't getting what you ask for, maybe, metaphorically speaking, you haven't dusted your corner yet.
Let's check out a couple more examples of this active faith, because they're fascinating. One woman bought these super expensive magazines just to cultivate an internal feeling of opulence. Another story features a woman stuck living in a tiny hotel room, but she desperately wanted a home of her own. So what did she do to show she was ready? She went out and bought a large kitchen carving knife. Totally useless in a hotel room, right? But absolutely essential for a real home.
It's like the old principle of digging a ditch to prepare for the rain. The whole point is that true faith demands physical, tangible readiness. You've got to act out your expectation.
Moving into Section 4. Remain calm in the face of appearances.
So now we need to talk about defense. How do you protect this house you're building with your faith? Shinn hits us with this punchy one-liner. Poise is a pearl of great price. This is vital. Poise, meaning an unshakable, deep-rooted internal calmness, is literally your greatest asset. Keeping complete internal peace is absolutely crucial, especially when everything on the outside seems to be going wrong or completely contrary to what you prayed for. The second you let yourself get ruffled, angry, or panicked, you're just handing your power away.
Think about the difference between a material attitude and a spiritual attitude. A material attitude leans entirely on visible stuff, trusting a paycheck that might fluctuate or investments that could tank overnight. But a spiritual attitude, totally different ballgame. It trusts deeply in a constant, invisible divine supply. When you're locked into a spiritual attitude, you know for a fact that if one door slams shut, another one is going to swing wide open immediately. You just don't panic.
So how do we practically protect our ship when the storms inevitably roll in? First off, never ever judge by appearances. They're almost always deceiving. Second, actively work to kick anger, indignation, and fear right out of your mind. Third, refuse to let those contrary appearances rock your boat. There's this great little anecdote in the text about a patient who simply said, "I should have been angry, but I wasn't. I should have been afraid, but I wasn't." They made a conscious choice not to react to the adversity. Weathering the storm means deciding, right now, that your internal peace is completely non-negotiable.
And finally, Section 5. Action and divine precedence.
Let's tie all this together. How do we surrender control and let the divine take the lead? The text pulls out this incredible piece of ancient wisdom. Let the inner warrior do the fighting. Look, once you've made your request, once you've gone out and bought your carving knife, dusted your corner, and done your physical preparation, you have to step back. You have to let that inner spiritual warrior take the wheel. Stop trying to micromanage the outcome with your anxious, logical brain. Just give the divine the right of way. This brings us back to our sturdy architecture, symbolizing the ultimate goal here, a mind firmly, unshakably rooted in faith. When you practice that law of preparation, when you listen to your intuition, and when you hold on to your absolute poise no matter what the outside world throws at you, you are building a house that is solid, complete, and completely unbothered by external storms. Your foundation becomes literally unbreakable.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a real provocative question. What action of preparation are you going to take today to build the house where your faith is going to live? Seriously, don't just think about it as a nice concept. Actually use it. Go out there, buy your carving knife, clear off a shelf, dust your space. Do something physical to show the universe you are truly ready. Thanks so much for joining me for this deep dive. It's been an absolute blast. Until next time, get out there and keep building your reality with unshakable faith.